Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we begin, I will ask the Reverend Ian McCritchie to lead us in prayer. The meeting is now being recorded. Thank you. Yeah.
Lord our God, we come and we give thanks this day for every rich blessing that is ours in Christ. You are truly a great God and a great King, one who's supplying all of our needs. As we look around us this day at the beauty of your creation, we're once again reminded of the nature of who you are. But yet we praise you, O Lord, that indeed there is more to life than creation, that you have opened up unto us even this day that way whereby we can come to know the Creator God. And so we pray that for all of us gathered here, that we would know something of the wonder of the person and the work of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so we pray your blessing upon our time together for all that we seek to discuss, that you would lead us and guide us. We pray especially for the young of our communities, those who are perhaps finding themselves in times of difficulty, those who are vulnerable. We pray, O Lord, that as we reflect upon them, that as we come together today, we would have it in our hearts to work together for their good. We give thanks for all representatives here today, for councillors and the staff of the Comhairle. We give thanks especially for Eilean and all of his work, and we pray for him as he looks forward to retirement, that your hand would be upon him in blessing. And as Donald takes over, that he would know something of that strength and that wisdom that comes from the Lord Jesus Christ. So bless us now, we pray. Lead us and guide us and forgive us for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Thanks, Reverend McCritchie. In regard to declaration of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely. Items 6 and 8 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and prior to moving into private, participants other than the relevant officer and members will be asked to leave the meeting. I'm ruling item 6B as urgent to allow it to be considered before the next meeting. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is now being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the caller's website following the meeting. And we'll start with tributes. So Tony Wade. I would like to pay tribute to Mr. Tony Wade, who recently retired from his role as Eilean Shear's Sports Facilities Service Manager after 23 years, leaving the island population a great deal healthier than he found it. Mr. Wade successfully managed sports centres, pitches, running tracks and swimming pools through the islands, and seen the successful introduction of the Sláinte scheme, the cheapest local authority membership scheme in Scotland, encouraging physical activity among people of all ages. On behalf of the committee, I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Wade for his long and committed service to sport and health in the Western Isles and wish him the very best for the future. Mr. William MacDonald. I would like to pay tribute to Mr. William MacDonald, who is retiring from the Comhairle after 40 years of service to education and children's services in the Western Isles. Mr. MacDonald started with the Comhairle in April 1983 as a Gaelic teacher at Lochda School. He moved to Scoil Linaclit in 1988 and became a guidance Gaelic teacher in June 1991. He then held the post of secondary Gaelic staff tutor for Euston Barra and quality improvement officer. In August 2014, he was appointed as senior education officer, and in August 2015, he was appointed as head of education. In October 2018, he became head of schools and community learning and was appointed as director for education, skills and children's services in January 2021. During this time, Mr. MacDonald's leadership and direction have seen unparalleled growth in Gaelic medium education in the Western Isles. On behalf of the committee, I would sincerely like to thank Mr. MacDonald for his long and committed service to education and children's services in the Western Isles and wish him all the very best for the future. Thank you. And just before we go on, I think is the Reverend Hugh Stewart in the meeting at all? Did you want to say something, Hugh?
Very briefly, just caller out the hood in Nech Caroch. Colochri Mush, Stray, Ha Kedet Blierne, Has your search in Havan Shadonlich, Has your son Tankar Skyve, is son in Heravashuk Shechet, she has thrown a Blierne. Comhairle man a bhíoh sé géisteach agus chomh coramach sa hasisiú a bhí a thuh Moidir ha ruchach yn y heglis yn mar mi hun. Sa sy'n gwyau y chwld y syrafachus agos bianach yn hir yn yrys amser na blion heri tiach agos cwtioch a bianach moedir ma clod han eisiau gol yn awdd yn ddriach. Ha cwna ma chwyna ha stwyd chi ffwrdd y fawn ffwchyn blion chi'n yr as. Chan anam chi mi stwyd chi ffwrdd sy'n a cha gyma codoch rys na chrw y fri hochig ha yn hyrafas. Tap life.
Thanks, Hugh. So, Don MacLeod. I would like to congratulate Don MacLeod, who was recently appointed to the post of Chief Officer for Education and Children's Services. Mr. MacLeod has over 25 years of experience in education as a teacher in Stornoway Primary for many years, as head of SPAC and Tolster School and senior education officer, and lately, the head of education. On behalf of the committee, I would like to extend our best wishes to Donald in his new role. So congratulations, Donald, and we look forward to working alongside you. It'd be really good. So thanks a lot. Cheers. Just before we move on to the next part of the meeting, I just wanted to mention that we have a work experience student, Emma James, is here from the Nicholsons, who's just sitting in, and she's with Legal at the moment. So it's just to introduce Gemma. Welcome, Gemma, to the meeting, and hope you're not completely put off by our shenanigans. Right. So thanks. So we'll start the meeting. The minute number one, the minute of the meeting of 25th of April 2023 for approval. Okay, thank you. The minutes of the meeting of the local negotiating committee teaching staff of the 16th of March 2023, that's for noting. Okay. Declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest that they have in any items on the agenda. It will be helpful if members express why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone or remotely through Teams by using the raised hand function. Does anybody have any declaration of interest they want to declare? Nope. Right, that's good. So, where are we? Let's see. So please ensure the declaration is repeated prior to the relevant item and adhere to the protocol as previously indicated. So we'll start with performance management. And this report provides members with an update on performance in local government benchmarking framework indicators relevant to education, skills and children's services, and to set out performance against improvement targets. Neil MacLeod will speak to the report and is available to answer any questions. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Chair. As you rightly say, the local government benchmarking framework report lists a number of indicators that the committee approved for reporting year on year. And these are set out in paragraphs. Just check they're set out there in paragraph 5.4, each of the different ones, and also in appendix 1, which lists all of the indicators that we have there. The committee agreed that there would be local government benchmarking framework improvement activity focused on literacy and numeracy, school attendance and exclusion, children looked after in the community, and looked after children with more than one placement in a year. With local government framework, benchmarking framework, it splits councils into what they call family groups. And for children's services, the family group that is included with us includes Dundee City, East Ayrshire, North Ayrshire, North Lanarkshire, Inverclyde, Western Bartonshire, and Glasgow City. So where you see any comparisons to the family group, that's the local authorities that it's included in that. In paragraph 5.3, it sets out the indicators that we agreed as priorities for improvement. It sets out the figure for 2018-19, and paragraph 5.4 sets out annual milestones and targets for up to 2029-30. Performance in 2021 against the targets set has been quite positive, although there has been an inclusion in school exclusion rates. But again, the service is working really hard to develop alternative approaches to support pupils and reduce exclusions from education. You'll note that achievement in literacy and numeracy at P1, P4 and P7 has improved significantly in 2021-22 and exceeds both the Scottish average and the family group average. And again, that is worth noting because one of the indicators within our business plan where we've been noticing that we haven't been achieving targets as related to literacy and numeracy. So it's been an area where we have been focusing improvement, and that improvement looks to be coming along now in the earlier stages. And if that continues, then that will feed through to the senior phase stage. So again, we're thankful for the significant work that members in the department have been doing in that area. Appendix 1, as I said, sets out all the local government benchmarking frameworks indicators that we identified for annual reporting, and use our red, amber, green framework for just identifying which ones we feel are on target, which ones we feel are not doing so well. You can see that gross cost of looked after children has gone up significantly. However, these are things that are very more often than not out with our control and will be picked up, no doubt, in for the report to committee. We've also included library indicators as that's moved in, and again with visits and costs of library loans. These are improving post-pandemic, and again it's a case of let's look to see how these things continue over the course of the year. We do continue to perform extremely well when it comes to positive destinations and when it comes to young people participating. We invariably are in the top 4, whether we're top 1 year, second the next, we invariably are in that top zone, and that reflects, I think, on the approach being taken to ensure that we're tailoring the provision to the needs of our young people, so that often we won't be focusing on a higher or an advanced higher, but maybe looking more of a vocational approach. And again, this is something that I think has made a significant impact on the achievement that we're making in these areas. So you can see that we have high numbers of 16 to 19-year-olds participating positively, and also post-school destinations, leaver destinations, as I say, again, very popular with a lot of young people going into employment. Again, quite happy to follow up on any questions members have. Thank you.
Do members have any questions? Anybody want to say anything? Yeah. Councillor McLean.
Thanks, Chair. Don't think you're hearing me.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah. Put the mic a bit closer. I will hear you. Yeah.
It hasn't turned to green, so I take it that the red is okay.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
Thanks for that, Neil. And it's good to see the improvements as you see in literacy and numeracy, particularly at primary level. I see that is improvement, and we have to highlight the improvement when it's improving, and that's good. Well, the question I have is, why is there no indicators? Why is there no of post-primary? In other words, into the broad general education at secondary and so on. That's the first question I have. There's no, I can't find them in here, but maybe I'm missing something that's hidden in your figures.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly wouldn't try to hide anything from you, Callum, in my figure. But being serious, there was no tests or assessments took place at S3 in these years. I think they've just restarted just now. I'll leave for the Chair to give the.
Diolch. Gang pandemic wrth y realtas rhin na chrosin di adef yn y hwcal fel arsgol cynnytydd. Chos simply sien ach bys yn y tilygwch yn eist yna nam sech at am cydyn fydde blion yn y gael tilyg o adw yn y fys ciolwch gynnyr son am y twynnych yw chael sŵeth bec yn y gang ma pandemic sias bec yn wrth yn sas yn eist y tilyg ach se chai iri orn on realtas na arsgol cyn agal gyn adw yn y chynnych o hwch bytyd.
Thanks, Chair. The second question I have is why is some of us would agree on your analysis of the secondary education, particularly in post focusing on vocational, and that the positive post-school destinations that pupils have, they are in itself very encouraging that these are. However, in the academia part of it, our region are falling short of other regions. And I take, for instance, and I've highlighted this before, of 5+ hires in education. And Mr. MacDonald did mention something, but I've seen even just recently a percentage of pupils, say in Castleby, not in Castleby, but in Iachar, not in Iachar, but in Leonaclet, sorry, Leonaclet School, that only 11% of pupils in Leonaclet achieve 5+ hires. Now that's in relation to others in East Renfrewshire and in Bartonshire who are up in the high 80s. And in the highest we've got, I think, is 24% of our schools are achieving 5+ hires. So although on one sense, are we overemphasizing vocational to the detriment of academia? I'm just putting that in because when you look at the league tables, and I know league tables aren't everything to go by in a school, but when you look at it, we seem to have in our schools, we seem to have gone down rather than maintaining where we are or going up. And it's rather disconcerting to see that our schools are, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 24%, 25% in the Nicholson, and the same in City Scott, and 11% in Leonaclet. Looking at these figures just as they are would seem to me to be quite worrying. And I know your emphasis is on post-school destination and vocational, but some of us would say that we're losing out somewhere.
Sin haúna fallaflí van si léin agus ha mis nach tilí dal sa skipig sa dultan je an kented. Ha de houden leid Kate fiket a vein koke sa warach a goúna módar a me an harpen a gaan maiichet a heke náant a féin kook sa warach. Ach gasin súle na houden a sein. Ach sé damas a hakkenne Peinte de goeletin je klein agus sé op sin déisian le arke we sheltein. Kal sin color na filmlach het gachten je klein ju wel dat ken het soul oprug na soul academiker. Agus sé sin stadie jemische riche kan se dulten am smunje na dé zou na plierne se mag. Sniechen komme sle ronjenele oorden na smunje wil kreteur uit de hang maar uit Japan. Gewil na houden egel siespikken is an sochel in de koersichen ha colin a filmchen na dúneoke seach ik heb puchte go vit no ástile nach dat geopen dat gelat go koersichen an nalhe nach heel ma ach was sinnet fallaflin agus ga sin soel na slúgéid agus tilitans de skipe a doelting.
Thanks, Chair.
Do you want to come back at all? You're right, Callum. Did you want to? Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else want to come in at all? Anyone else? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chairman. Just questions really. 5.1, it says the group that we're tied in with sort of benchmarking or whatever, Dundee, Glasgow. You know, you mentioned on the last one there, we compare with Orkney and Shetland, which seems to make sense. But well, the first question is, this is to show across different sizes. Obviously, it is Glasgow and Dundee. I can't understand what the relationship there is because there seems to be no comparison. That's my first question.
Come back, Neil. Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, the family groups are set out by the local government benchmarking framework group themselves in the improvement service. A lot of it isn't necessarily about islands per se. It's about density of population. It's about rurality, but it's also about levels of deprivation in different indicators. So as I say, it does look odd, but it's just the way that it's set up for children's services. Other areas within the local government benchmarking framework, we will be in different family groups. So this is specifically for children's services and related to, as I say, different factors, but one of them is around deprivation, poverty, and probably access for ourselves, which will be another big issue.
So it's a cross section, I think. Yeah. The 5.2, I think that reflects very well. On 5.3, school exclusion rates, which is about 12%, is that not high in comparison with similar councils? And where do they exclude them to? Because we've got a particular problem here. It's not like if you're in Inverness, you can send them to Dingwall or whatever. What is the situation with this? Can I have more information?
Sorry, I missed the start of the question. I take it referring to school exclusions, was it? Yes. As I say, school exclusions is they're excluded from the school, so that they're actually sent home. It would be the easy answer to that one. You know, when you're excluded, it isn't as if you're put into an alternative place for education, because if that's the case, you're still in education. But I can get Donald or Willie to explain that a bit better than I can.
Yeah, really, the important part of the question is, why is it so high?
That's it.
Sorry, I'll come in English for this one. I agree with you, the statistic is high, but as most of you in the chamber know, we've got a small cohort of young people that are providing us with very challenging behaviours, and it's a succession of exclusions that makes the percentage so high. They are sent home. Sometimes we provide alternative provision where we've got it, and work is provided for these young people at home, but it's undoubtedly a challenging position with that small cohort of young people. I'm not saying we've got the solutions. I know Donald's working, and I know there's a group in Stornoway looking at it, but it's challenging, and we're working our way through it, and it's a challenge that we haven't had in previous years, if I'm being honest, and we continue to work on it.
Yeah. Well, on that particular point, on the next paragraph, where it says school exclusion rates per thousand, and this is the projected figures looking forward. I don't know if it means that, you know, there's a current small amount of pupils who are causing these high figures, and it's anticipated that they won't be around in the future. But school exclusion rates, it says 2023, 20%. 15%, 10%, and 5% in the next 4 or 5 years. Is this a wish me situation, or is it, you know, I know it's hard to project into the future, obviously, but it seems to be coming down very rapidly. I don't know, going back the way, you know, there's the same reflection. It's just there's a peak at the present time, and it's quite realistic to look at these you know, figures which are receding. That's the word.
We hope it's a peak at the moment, and we're working and doing our best to work with schools to find alternative solutions. And again, it's a wish list really that we hope to see these figures improve, and working with staff, we hope to find strategies, and we're taking consultants in very small number just to look at people who have got specialist behaviour strategies, and we'll try and explore every avenue to reduce exclusions. And it's our target, and time will tell whether these strategies are working.
I'll just bring Donald in as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just want to come back on the questions raised there by Councillor Mackenzie. First of all, I wanted to clarify that in terms of these exclusions, that we need to note that they're not permanent exclusions from school. They are almost exclusively short-term exclusions for a day, 2 days, maybe 3 days at a time, where they are excluded to home, sometimes with educational support from the school. This predominantly is also linked to a Comhairle approved policy of zero tolerance for violence and aggression in schools, and there is a difficult trade-off for schools between challenging and managing circumstances around violence and aggression and challenging behaviour, and also supporting children and young people to continue to participate in their education. And we've been working particularly with our secondary schools, although some of these exclusions have related to primary in a very small amount. They're predominantly secondary school exclusions. And we're working with our 4 secondary schools on approaches to reduce exclusion as the route to supporting and challenging circumstances in schools. And I'm pleased to note that beyond the data that's able to be reported here, that these exclusion rates are already coming down, and we do hope to be able to meet the targets that Councillor Mackenzie has referenced there.
It's okay. Is that all right, Ray? Yeah. Does anyone else want to come in at all? Online? Okie dokie. So with that, do members agree to the recommendations in 3.1? Okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 5, which is, I'll turn the page over, is performance management 2022-23 quarter 4. This report provides an overview of the Education, Skills and Children's Services Department business plan progress and related performance for the 4th quarter of 22-23. And again, Neil is available to speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, the performance management report's end of year, quarter 4 one, and first thing I'd like to do is apologise for an error in the report at 9.1. When I got the updated quarter 4 budget figures, I didn't update the actual sentence there to say that it was for quarter 4. So it isn't quarter 3, it is quarter 4 that the figures relate to. The department reports on 12 service actions. I'm pleased to say all of these are on target and achieved. There were 6 internal follow-up reports, and 3 of those have been completed and written off, and 2 are on target. 1 is slightly off target and requiring monitoring, and we'll be looking to achieve these things in the coming year. Looking at each of the service areas under children's services, we report on 9 performance indicators within that area. 3 of them, though, are out with tolerances. One of those is the percentage of looked after accommodated reviews completed within statute timescales, and that ended the year at 70.18% against a target of 80%. However, there had been a significant improvement over the last quarter, and in the last quarter there were 16 reviews undertaken, and of those 13 were completed in time. So moving in the right direction there. Then the other one that was off target rather was the percentage of initial assessment reports and social background reports submitted to the Scottish Children's Reporter Administration. And that one was at 44.74% against our target of 70%. And again, performance had improved in the last quarter. Where we look at just the last quarter, it was at 77% of reports. So again, positive movement there. However, it's quite, the indicator itself is currently being used as an indicator of quality rather than a quantitative indicator. And what we're finding is that there are numerous delays caused by the family themselves or representatives or late submission of information. So these things are out with the control of the department. And what we've done some research on other services within the Northern Alliance have actually stopped using that indicator as a method of reporting performance, as it wasn't giving a true reflection of the quality of the service. And it is in the report itself, we're recommending that we remove that indicator from the business plan for 2023-24 with if members approve that. Moving to the Directorate business unit that reports on 12 PIs. 3 of those are out with tolerances. One of them is to do with complaints, and we'll be looking at complaints under section 10.1. There has been a drop in the percentage of P6 to S6 pupils taking a school meal, and this is currently being investigated, so that we're looking at how we can improve that take-up, and also devices to all S1 to S6 pupils are underway when there's a large batch of them being prepared for distribution. There's a lot of setup, although we've got the the devices. There's a lot of setup involved in preparing them to go out to the pupils involved. Within schools and community learning, we report there on 27 PIs. 4 of these PIs were out with tolerances. One of them related to childminders achieving grades of good or above, and 3 out of the 5 childminders who were inspected did achieve grades of good and above. Again, with the small numbers, you know, even one can cause a big change in percentages. So it can be quite a misleading thing just to look at percentages with the numbers being so small. S4 to S6 leavers who attained level 5 in literacy and numeracy had achieved 56.93% against 72.2% in the previous year. As I mentioned earlier on with the local government benchmarking framework, area for improvement, we knew that literacy and numeracy was an area for improvement. And again, it's going to take a bit of time for that to feed through to the senior phase and the work that's gone there. And again, it's a piece of work we'll have to do is to look at that cohort and plan them through and see if it was and if it was just the fact that there was a cohort there who were not achieving at the level that we would have desired. And again, just to mention that has been looked at within the National Improvement Framework reporting, so it is an area that's been taken forward directly under the NIF plan thread James. We had 77.5% of pupils attaining or sitting an advanced higher attaining HC passes, and that compared to 94.05% the previous year. But again, when you compare it to the pre-pandemic, the last set of examinations that took place under the same conditions as this one's took place just now, we were at 80% in 2019. So there is a slight drop off of 2.5%, but when you look at it, it's actually very, you know, it compares very reasonably. And that's the thing about when you set the target as the previous years, you're looking at a trend there, but you're not necessarily looking at the targets in apples and pears, as people would say. In terms of preschool establishments inspected, 8 were inspected and 4 achieved grades of good or above in quality indicators. And again, numbers are small, so percentages can be impacted, and they're looking at 3 to 4 indicators at each time. So all you need is one of those not to be good where we fall down on that indicator. So again, just one that we are conscious of and need to keep an eye on. Under 7.1, I won't go over that again because that was the local government benchmarking framework information, and that was covered in the separate report. Risk management, operational risks, we're keeping an eye on those. We consider those on a quarterly basis anyway. 8.4 shows the matrix just to give you a visual impact on financial information and carry forwards will be dealt with separately out with this report. 10.1 is where we look at our complaints. We received 2 stage 2 complaints in Q4, and we responded to 3 complaints within that quarter. Unfortunately, all of them were delayed for various reasons, and one of those was one I was working on myself, where we had to wait for nearly 2 months for somebody to organise an advocate. So we are facing quite difficult, complex complaints, but we are if you like, we are held up from time to time by the people who are raising the complaint themselves, maybe not responding to emails, but also, as I said, waiting for advocates to be appointed. Pretty much every complaint these days is likely to have an advocate. And other factors that affect that, school holidays, which have a huge impact on a lot of our complaints, any that of course relate to schools. If they come in the week before the school holidays, all of a sudden you've got a month delay practically, or a 2-month delay without any control over that thing. One other one that I worked on myself, we were looking for a resolution and the resolution took quite a while to arrive at, and that delayed the writing of the final letter of findings. Quarter 4 FOIs. FOIs have been huge this year. We're already at the end. In quarter 4, department received 102 FOIs compared to 51 in quarter 4 of the previous year. 82 were responded to in the quarter, which is 75.61% done in the 20 working days. These numbers have not decreased. That trend is increasing this year. So in the first quarter of this year, we are way above what we've nearly twice what we have been in quarter 1 of the corresponding year last year. And again, FOIs some of them can take quite a lot of time. So officers are being stretched dealing with those. And again, we have no option but to respond to FOIs. As long as we have the information and as long as it can be gathered together in a reasonable amount of time, then we are duty bound to respond to them. But it's proving to be quite a challenge for us. Thank you, Chair. Happy to answer any questions that come.
Thanks, Neil. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Mackenzie. Figures on, that's it.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really right at the end of the report. COVID-19, all the children are back in school and risk assessments are in place. And notice that the department are monitoring the situation and so forth. What I take it you're looking at the long-term effect on the pupils that were there at that time, or round about the time of COVID. Can you say, do you have any sort of current information regarding how it has affected the kids? Obviously, they weren't at school for quite a long time, and everything was up in the air. So, how are we going forward on this?
Who wants to come in on that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer, Chair. Yes, it's difficult in terms of having data in terms of this. There is a lot of anecdotal information, and particularly I think in the current gathering of CFE levels, we'd start to see some trends coming through that may be indicative of an ongoing impact of COVID-19. The current S3 in our schools is the year that was singularly most affected, although there was obviously impact across all children who were in school at that time. But that was the year group that was particularly affected with disruption to the transition from primary into secondary. And there is anecdotal evidence that these young people have experienced some degrees of challenge, not universally so, but there is some instance of that anecdotally from schools, and schools are supported to ensure that these young people get the support that they need. We are also been looking at the impact of COVID-19 on our staff and teaching population, as well as the impact on young people themselves. And in a recent review that we did just a couple of weeks ago with Orkney and Shetland and colleagues from Education Scotland and ADIS, it was identified that there was a pandemic impact on teaching professionals too. And that's something that the findings will come through in the collaborative review report to make sure that we are providing support for practitioners to regain their professional confidence post-pandemic. But on all of that, it is anecdotal, and we don't have hard and fast data in terms of the overall impact on time. In terms of COVID-19 itself, there isn't ongoing significant impact to service, but we did see during the course of the winter months in December through to February, maybe even into March, there was some impact on staff and pupil absence due to COVID-19 being present still in the community. That has significantly dropped off as we have approached the summer. But that, although I mentioned that, it was very low overall, but there was a degree of impact of COVID-19 through the winter on individual absences of some staff and pupils still at that time. So it was just noting that it hasn't gone away, and it was prevalent in our community for a period of time, particularly in early 2023, but that has settled down again now. But yeah, in terms of answering Councillor Mackenzie's question, we have anecdotal information that there continues to be some impact, but not hard and fast data on that.
just to say, yeah, I suppose the results will only become clear as time goes by, basically, and obviously the staff are affected as well as the pupils.
Thanks, Ray. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. A couple of points. One on 6.13, the literacy and numeracy figure amongst leavers, of those reaching National 5. I think that would be a group of young people who had been very much affected by COVID, and some of them may well have fallen through the net and leaving without these qualifications in literacy and numeracy will be potentially damaging to their future, but you can understand probably with the gaps in their education, and perhaps some of these were young people who were disaffected with education anyway. It would be quite difficult for schools to ensure that they were reaching certain levels. So I would have thought that was one figure that probably shows an effect from the COVID years. And possibly also the advanced higher figure that you mentioned, whereby we're not actually talking about a very large group of people across the 4 secondary schools sitting in advanced hires, and these figures are very quickly distorted. I believe, anecdotally, that probably last year has been the first year, not quite fully back, but post-COVID, that maybe young people who would perhaps have been advised not to sit advanced higher in the past were being given the chance last year. And my other point, quite differently from that, on 10.1 on the complaints and FOIs, I don't think you can overemphasize how time consuming these FOIs are. 102 and a quarter, and it's, when you think it's not just the work that's done in this building or by the staff here, but the schools have, sometimes all the schools have to provide and go dig in for that information to pass on, and then has to be collated in here. It is an increasing bind on both school and staff here. My final point is that 20-day target realistic in terms of complaints, because things like advocacy and delays and also school holidays are always going to happen. Are we always going to be missing that target? That's my question there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Murray. Did anyone want to come back on any of those points? I don't think there's anything. Neil?
Yeah,
You're on, yeah.
It's just the 20-day
days,
target
yeah.
is set by the Complaints Commission. It's a national thing, so which you depend on that. We don't include public holidays in that figure. But yeah, it's a 20. And it sounds a lot, but it can be quite challenging on top of people have day jobs as well, of course.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Does anyone else want to come in at all? Anyone else? Let's pick Councillor McLean first. I think he just sneaked in there. There was a race between the two of you, but I think you've won on the line.
I'm quite willing to defer to Mr. MacDonald.
No, you go first, Callum.
Thanks. I'm glad that Councillor Kenzie raised up the impact of COVID. I think, to be quite honest with you, it's underestimated. I've been speaking to staff, not only staff in this authority, but in other authorities as well. And the impact on schools is something that we aren't taking seriously enough. And I don't think the government is putting in enough finance in order to help us out in this. I'll give you examples from that. And this is not only from here. I was speaking to a member of staff teaching in one of the big schools on the mainland. And she was saying that she had hardly got in the last year, she didn't have a full attendance in 1 week in any of her classes. She was teaching maths. That's it. That shows you. I don't know if the impact is as bad here, but it has as bad, and it's got an impact on attainment. I'm seeing the attainment down here, and it's worrying. And I said it already in my previous question before, and it'll be interesting to see what actually the department are doing, as Mr. MacDonald has emphasised already, is what they're doing in the future, because attainment is going down, and it's going down nationally. It's not only a problem here, but it's you look at all the schools throughout the mainlands, and every schools you're talking to, every members of staff, and I'm talking to members of staff in different authorities, and they are actually saying the same. And there's also, it's got an impact on behaviour. The behaviour, you ask any teacher, no little wonder that teachers are going off with stress and going off ill. The behaviour today has been affected, and it's been affected through the fact that we've closed down schools for over a year. It's an absolute disgrace what we've done. We've actually closed down. It's had an effect on the mental problems of children, and it's also a mental effect upon staff as well. And really, we need to actually address that. And whether we're going to do it as a council, and I think we should be doing it, and we should be doing it quite urgently, because the needs are urgent. And I think that should happen. But these are so 613 is indeed worrying, Neil. It is the decrease, a 20% decrease is I would say is very worrying, and it'll be worrying to you, Chair, as well, I'm sure. So these are things that we will have to act upon, as Mr. MacDonald says that in a thing. The question that I've got as well is to do with 11.2, and it's to do with eSchool. It mentions there the re-establishment locally. And are we going to get a report on what is happening to eSchool if we're seeing that is what is happening on a local level? I think some people are afraid that it's going to be taken over nationally, and that we've lost the locality of eSchool. And that could well be. The finances are limited, but it's just in the future. Obviously, this is a sort of, it's been earmarked here. It's been earmarked it's been highlighted, I should say, for a reason. eSchool Advisory Board is being re-established locally, but with membership from national groups. So I'm just saying that is a trend that I'm sure we'll be informed later on about. But my emphasis was on 613, was on the need that we have within our education, within the effect that we're having on our young people, but as was mentioned today, on staff as well.
Okay, thanks, Callum. Do you want to come in?
Taplev, I mean, couldn't be related to get a host of my hits. I mean, Spanish Gehennetel, Agus Ganation, I mean, some great Tiran was your canted Folum, canted Mug, canted Yashin Cusers, the Scotland, some sort of large Mures, Haywards, the house and look, as in a couple of hospitals, a skip a couple of on Gana Trivlianican. There's an amazing fame. Doi fáil am áireach is gas gweld clánad áireach a chomór as a dói a bhfuil a gúnsa go rúh mógan agus féimear taiche fé an a tuit sé hamas múneach go féimear barach taiche fis na clasicin as an luchtéicus gus an hágráin de raibh tárad am á társna eile níor háast a chádan an céinted. Húhíscail a sin gealtanas ag rialtas na hanica a staid go a chuide Academy Digital het bhaun. A chan sin a clointe gúir sa míad kiste naíneach. Agus sé döverú garamtioch mas réitm go bí fall a ví kenúan mas mise a cha mé san go bí buin stúdi akin gehennetel is an smach go gael sa sin kenneach ha rúne de nol am mestuún. An mis much gevild Academy Digital ná an dakin sna hele níir. Gevoete met le liatachus le inneves, gevoete met pucht nurs, leis agus sé bhás sa dúchtain na íscail le dhéana a bblion a tíochtéise le deachtain sa sísim na a dhéanú le parach ganneves Africa nas cúnantan le cínd a mé smúnecha gevoete íscail clós de nurs gomór agus a bhí hoiseach gach. Hoiseach na sin tíanú hu vingach a duitach an alapa. Agus bis na kusendia, han lit dé flikkers te jessin, ach je senne dover is an a buin studie en goed het vuilne riest, is skaals nach el krantje en kloos dat koloor ganashente.
Thanks, Donald. William, sorry. Do you want to come back in? No, you're happy. Yeah. All right, thanks. Okay, so there's no one else. Oh, yes, of course, Malcolm McDonald. How could I forget you, Malcolm? Sorry.
That's quite all right, Chair. I just want to look at FOIs. It was mentioned that they have gone up to 102 from 52. And I just want to ask, was there a specific concern expressed, or were the requests for the FOIs wide-ranging? And were the FOIs across the entire Comhairle area, or was it in a specific area? You know, such as Stornoway or Linnaclit, etc.
The FOIs themselves that we report on are just ones that come into education and children's services. There are other FOIs to other departments, so that's just those that are coming to ourselves. There are many more going across. The ones that we're getting the majority from are actually coming from the Scottish Parliament or the Scottish Government, actually. The next biggest is journalists. So it's very often on any national agenda that's cropped up that we will be getting. And as Councillor Murray pointed out, you know, we're having to go to every school because it's across the islands. They very rarely will ask for just something for one area, because most of these are going to every single local authority in Scotland and very often the whole of Britain. So it's just become a way of getting information that just throw out the net and see what you get. Seems to be the practice in a lot of areas.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Neil. Right, so if there's no more questions, do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Take it that's a yes. Thanks. So item 6 will be taken in private, so we'll move on to item 7. And so that's Education Provisional Annual Review of Mothball School Provision 2023-24. This report provides an update in relation to mothballed educational provisions at Tolster School, Brettaclit School, Park School and Bernera School, and to review the status of each as is required annually. Donald McLeod will speak to the report and is available to answer any questions. Thank you, Donald.
Thank you. Maar as je graag zo hacking die had gebail gach blione kiant die skoltje hacking ha dunch geskoleren ach nog el dunch gehoffical. As maar hakujen raste hakeer skoltje zo ik Comhairle as a seirchen had das skol had dunch fat de skoleren agus das skol farvel parschen skol dunch. Skol Hollestach had níos vi dunch fat son ceir blione agus skol Vianareich a níos vi dunch is son davlione. Agus cudjoch ha yn clas Gaelic an y skol na Park dunch de skoleren agus a clas Comhairle an y skol Vriasclich dunch de skoleren. Agus a olach a Comhairle gach blione sglúd a gúd a hort gach seirch is an jinna ceinjach de had a gyori gianu a skol agal dunch go skoleren nio as clugaríist. Agus an eiste dúach dat fisige de bhil ma dhéon is séiche gach skol dé a tachart. Táisgil is skol Hollestach channeal iorita sa mí in hían is na céir blione ha skol a níos vi dunch agus cudjoch ha an háirsnach gyori parsing an a skol gáil an áil an háirsnach mar ha clechge cháil a skol agus ha iorita sachgus an skol gáil an áil cudjoch as is nu súlachach le ket van a Comhairle mar ha is an clechgech status an Comhairle is a cháirsnach gets an a skol a gúnach gu hoffical ma dhéirich. Le skol Vianareich skol eile had dunch fat son an arna blione channeal iorita sa mí ríiste a hían is an skolar sa mí táisach as a skolsin is an a blione ha roin. So is nu súlachach go firiche skolsin is an néséich is an a blione ha roin is an sin. Leis skol na Park fel fan an clas Gaelic dunch agus na skolan sa mí a ha gyori Gaelic a dos go skol na loch ríistim blione chadanig iorita sa mí is an fellum troviana Gaelic an a skir na Park. Hannig díisisteach na skol is an táisach in aflon as a Comhairle a chadanig iorita sa mí as a Gaelic. Ska sin sin súlach in riche is an clas Gaelic dunch is an blione as a skol. As je Comhairle is an háirsnach an a skir na Park is an fiachan í liatachach arvan as a skol canún níos a bhíacking le bail agus leis a háirsnach is an fiachan í taicehort gan a skol is an arvan an jaarstachach ach mar ha cúsin im leone channeal iorita sa mí is an chláir as a skol is an am leone ha roin. Agus a skol eile farvel páirsin a skol dunch sé skol Vriasclich fel an clas Comhairle dunch sé skol Gaelic fata hon a skol Vriasclich inis. Ha chan ríist mar na scoil dyn alach a dan i giwryd ys mi is on chwarig as y scoil is on clas biola. Dyn ys mi ha faswyrach y biola yr ast as y chwaith nag fad dol go scoil hiabos niw scoil na loch as ga dan i giwryd ys mi is on ngar ys ysyn asgol ag ríist. Ond ymleon i chi'n ron sio hannig i o'r ydys yn ciansri cwrn y parent yn ffon ysgol a chyd eist ymleon a chyd i o'r ydys yn mi ffwp yswylwch eich ysgrydych ala gianw i'r ynghyr ys ysyn asglwch. So, yn molyn ha yn aes gyfarag se lianting le camal na cyhyr yn ydyn sy'n dwyns mar a ha ach le sgol holostach lianting o'n le Comhairle leis an choirsnach mae un dŵnach ysgol gyhoffigel mae sy'n hachtus yn horsioch. Sa'n mi toes gilior cystion yr acard for bail mae un yn aisg.
Okay, thanks, Donald. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thanks. Yeah. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but I'd like to thank Mr MacLeod and his fellow officers for coming to Park to the meeting we had with the Park Parent Council recently. And I would really commend the work that has been done in Park School, but it's just to try and see that we can turn, we said every stone is turned, Mr MacLeod, to keep that school. It's a fragile community, it's a good school, and I think there is opportunities for that, for growth in that area, and I think we need to pursue every avenue to make sure that we fulfil that, whether it's Gaelic through Gaelic medium or through preschool. I think we discussed the preschool element of things earlier on. I know there's challenges there as well, but I'd appreciate the department to keep a careful eye and try and move things forward regarding Park.
Yn dirwch gyndych Mr Morris dyn y gra has yn tolig taich y chamal di ysgol ond ysgyd yn y parc sy'n tics gan y chocwtr moch sa ha gan y choes noch ysgol y chamal ffasgilt ag sa mis tolig cydioch camal y canioch ag ys y gwbyr cwngri bwyn yn y choes noch gys o'n fiach yn y taicgord gan ysgol ys o'n niastwch ag yn harf yn tyn ysdiach yn ysgol a cydioch a dylich yn ys o'n camal da chan yn y gwbyr as ysgol as yn tolig fiach ni o bylu ysgol genarich ag ys di gydiolich as yn choes noch mach cas sŵring yn ianu ys o'n gaelig ysdiach as ysgol yr eist as yn y blionych yn arwyn ag ys siachgol Plas yn biol as ysgol mae'r ha chan i'r biech sy'n mi ysgol sy'n agwynnych as yn tics mae'r mynd grach o cwtymach sa gan y choes noch ag ys slif o'r fe ag dyn yma had begad y gyori ysgol agwyn ysgol sy'n mi ala so has yn y gyori taich gyhort gan y ysgol ag ys gan y choes noch dod yr erd.
Reverend McCritchie.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Councillor Morrison said. I'm the chaplain for Park School, and as a former primary school teacher myself, I have to say it's an excellent school. I'm quite involved with the school, and it really is an asset to the authority. I think without the school in our community would be all the poorer for it, and we're certainly looking to work with the school to find as many different ways as we can to, I suppose, promote the school role. But the question I have is this. What would need to happen for the Gaelic medium provision to come out of being mothballed, if you like? Is it just a case of the demand not being there? And for example, if one of the parents of those two pupils who have been enrolled this year had desired Gaelic medium provision, would that have been given to them in Path School, or would they have had to have gone to Scoil na Loch?
Ask Donald to come back here.
If anyone wishes to request Gaelic medium in Park School, absolutely that would be considered. We'd have to work with the school and the parents involved to ensure that they would be able to receive a viable and coherent education, and one pupil may not be deemed to be sufficient to be able to do that. There isn't a set number that you would have to reach to determine that a provision would be re-established. It would be determined by the age of the children wishing to enrol, the capacity of the school to deliver a rounded curriculum, any particular additional support needs the learners might have. So it's on a case-by-case basis based on the particular cohort that wishes to re-establish the school. But we have been clear with both the parent council and the community council in the district that we are supportive of trying to help them re-establish a Gaelic medium role if that's what the community desires to do. So the basic answer to the question, Mr McCritchie, is that if a cohort of pupils is able to be identified to continue in or to establish the provision in Scullna Park, we would definitely support that. But it will be down to the individual circumstances of those that come forward and wish to do it at the time.
Okay, thanks, Donald. Is that right? Councillor MacLean, I think you wanted to come in, so I'll bring you in next. Sorry for not bringing.
No, thanks, Chair. It's pertinent to follow on from each topic. It's just to do with Tulster School, as is. But first of all, let me say that the council have kept that mothballed and kept the possibility of opening it, and they're to be commended for that. And it's been going on now for, I'm sure, as Donald will correct me, 3 years, is it? No, at least. And but what I'm getting at the moment is I was at a very well attended meeting of the community in Tulster recently, and there was plans for the school going on, to have a community aspect to it. How far advanced is that? Because I think there's a wee bit, when you get on to consultations and consulting with, there becomes a wee bit of lack of patience, as I would call it, and impatience is a word for it. But how far forward is that discussion with Tulster and the Tulster community?
Thank you, Councillor MacLean. Yes, it's actually 4 years that the school has been mothballed, and we have been retaining the provision with the prospect of reviewing it annually, as we have done at the sitting of committee each year, to consider whether a role could be re-established for the school, which hasn't been the case. And equally, since then, the community has been increasing their wish and desire to take over the building and to develop it into a wider community facility. We've entered into agreement with a community body in the area who are now taking over the school hall, and I think possibly looking at an adjacent area of land with that too. And I understand their wish to take on the whole school premises. Because Tulster School is classified as a rural school, we have to undertake additional statutory consultation under the 2010 Act that's referenced in the report. We have consent from the Comhairle to proceed through consultation, and we have notified Scottish Government and Education Scotland of the intention to proceed through the statutory consultation process, and that's expected to continue throughout this academic year with a view to the school being officially closed before the end of this academic year. And that's for us to consult with the community on and have to take on board all the views of everyone who wishes to express a view about that. And HMI and Scottish Government will be involved in that consultation as it goes forward. So it's a difficult decision for ourselves and for the community, but it is in recognition that the community feels that there is a purposeful use for the facility for the benefit of the wider community in Tulster.
Can I come in again? Don mentions the end of the academic year. Do you mean the academic year now, or do you mean 23-24? It's that we don't want to stifle enthusiasm, and that's the word I was looking for, rather than patience. But when you get an enthusiastic community, you don't want to stifle what their aims are. And if we're going on for another year before we can enter into negotiation with, is it?
Just to clarify for Councillor MacLean, the complexity of the consultation that is required for the closing of a rural school is significant and is set out in Acts of Parliament that we have to comply with, and it would be impossible for us to do so before the end of the current sitting academic year. It would be in time for the closure of the academic year 23-24, and I appreciate that there is frustration and a wish for the community to take forward a plan there, and we may be able to do that in terms of giving degrees of access to the building. We can't formally close the school and hand over possession of it until we work through the requirements of that statutory consultation, which does have additional layers because of its classification as a rural school.
No, thanks for that. The community will be interested in that, actually, because they're talking about financing what they're intending to do with the building, and that the financing of that, of course, is only for a certain period of time. So to go on to the end of 23-24 is, as I would say that I don't think the community will be too enamored, maybe is the word for it. But then, as you say, rules are rules. And we know what the law can be called often.
Okay, thanks, Cal. If there's no more questions, do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Okay, yep, thanks. So we'll be moving into, well, no, performance monitoring first with reports outstanding and is that live? Oh, a minute. That's saying it's taken in private, going in private, yeah. So that's reports outstanding. So did you want to come into it? So I'll just bring Derek in here on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just for members to note, in terms of item 1 on that, the reports outstanding, that data has been reported in the performance monitoring reports, which are coming twice a year. So that can be removed from the list of reports outstanding. It has been reported another way.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Right, we're going to move into private now. So we'll just get set up for that, and we'll be back in a second. Thanks.